Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John W. Speaks. I'm your host, Food Truck Bullet Holes. Griselda is not showing any signs of slowing down their hot streak, and Westside Gunn is instrumental in that prolific output right now. Since 2022, he's put out 5 projects, some of which that don't quite hold up to Supreme Blientel, Pray for Paris, and Fly God. But there are strokes of genius laced throughout 10 and Peace Fly God, which offset the monotony of records like And Then You Pray For Me. But the Still Praying record, which was released back in November, proved once again that his brand of boom bap is thriving, as he explored a down and dirty aesthetic amped up by DJ Drama's bold hosting spot. Also, the 11 EP had some really bright moments that harken back to Sincerely Adolf and its brittle production. So now with 12 coming a mere 4 months after Still Praying, Westside Gunn continues his trend of producing stylish, brutal, and mystifying East Coast hip-hop, even if it lacks Westside Gunn's presence a little too often, as well as a sense of cohesion. Westside Gunn employs production from CG, Conductor, and Denny LaFleur, among others, and the grimy aesthetic that Griselda usually utilizes in their composition is still potent. Highland Park DJ Mr. Green helms the vinyl crackling intro of Michelle World, which pretty authoritatively establishes the lo-fi tone of this record, bleeding into the standouts Boswell, that radiates with mob-deep, jet-black atmosphere, driven by horn samples that feel like they're ripped straight out of a 40s military propaganda film. Denny LaFleur's mixture of strings and trashy drums on Adam Page is a huge musical highlight, its versatility proving to be outstandingly anarchic and rousing in its presentation. I do feel like the longer tracks like Viert and Dump World suffer from a lack of forward motion and progression, even if the central guitar passage on the former and Conductor's fusion of decadent keys and gospel vocals are pretty stylish. However, I much prefer the lo-fi, indie alternative inspired drums on Health Science that are ear-grabbing in conjunction with the character-filled bass runs. The synth lines on East Miami are a little too droning and repetitive for their own good, and the dragging progression and slinking percussion on Bury Me With a Stove is extremely tedious and kind of annoying, especially when put up against a superior production like the triumphant Outlander. So while not the greatest execution of this sound, the good far outweighs the bad, and acts as yet another complementary backdrop for Westside Gunn's flows. One of the first things that we hear on this record is the constant refrain of "Who is the GOAT?" And it's a brash way of starting this album off from a thematic standpoint, giving us a question though that isn't really answered all that much. We open Boswell with an aggressive verse from SD Knack, before Westside Gunn enters the fold with self-congratulatory bars that highlight and celebrate his continued success. And that's a mode Westside Gunn stays in for the majority of this record, profoundly mixing nuanced ruminations on past traumas that allow for his massive success and riches in the present day. Adam Page is a standout from a songwriting perspective for that very reason, as Westside Gunn paints a vivid picture of his life pre-fame, mirroring Stove God Cook's fantastic verse that juxtaposes his hunger to rap while struggling to survive. And Dump World has Westside Gunn at his absolute best, tapping into a brutish demeanor balanced with its elaborate name-dropping of designer luxury. But that's where a ton of these issues structurally reside in the songwriting, since a lot of the lyricism here gets pretty repetitive quickly, and it doesn't help when the bars that are lent to the album by guest performers are the best ones. For instance, Westside Gunn demonstrates a lack of flexibility to depart his familiar writing style, leading to weaker verses like on Health Science that can't quite stack up to the emotional impact of Gumbo Yaya, which ingeniously speaks on the preciousness and delicacy of life. It's just that I wish that Westside Gunn gave himself more of a platform to capitalize on that type of storytelling, so he didn't come off as surface level and uninspired at times, because that also shows in his mic presence and performance. The energy Westside Gunn brings to each track when he's invested turns out to be enriched with a playful candidness that's hard to emulate. But co-stars on this record like Stove God Cooks really match that delivery when they get the chance to. They just may get that chance way too often, because most of the record Westside Gunn feels like a featured player. He isn't even the first voice that we hear on the album, and though his verse on Boswell is commanding, it leaves us wanting more, whether that's character, personality, presence, and it just isn't something that consistently shows up on this album. Another problem here is that the song structures really don't allow for much staying power, especially if they're longer tracks like Viert, which meander and wax and wane so much that Westside Gunn's presence feels too unwieldy and frustratingly unfocused. That being said, when he does drive the bus on the record, tracks like Outlander and Adam Page are instantly kinetic, and 055 even proves to dial up the bravado. So although it's a choppy road getting to quality flows on this record, the moments that are strong here are worth it. With a track listing consisting of 11 songs that runs 43 minutes. I wasn't a fan of the way the material here was segmented and presented. I think Michelle World slides into Boswell at the beginning pretty well, and Adam Page continues to pay respect to the aesthetic that's established, but Veer is a track that quickly knocks back the pace, and I don't really think that the flow of the record recovers from there. While Health Science and Gumbo Yaya are standouts in the midsection, the latter part of the record is so uneven, especially when you hit Bury Me With a Stove, which could have been left off the track list altogether. So it's an awkward run up to the slightly underwhelming closer, which to be fair, Dump World does benefit from solid lyricism, but the way that it's situated here, it just doesn't feel like a strong enough note to end on. Personally, I think the album would have worked way better if Outlander kicked it off. You got rid of Michelle World, East Miami, Veert, and Bury Me With a Stove, and kept the rest the same except close it out with Adam Page, to kind of just switch up the pacing and escalation, because otherwise it's pretty tedious to get through towards the end.
Praise the Lord, everybody.
Conductor!
Bring it back on. Price might change. Stamp might change.
12 isn't the best or worst Westside Gunn project, but it does lack the same kind of bite that Pray for Paris and even Still Praying and 10 had, mainly because there's an aimless, directionless quality to the record. However, when it does connect, Westside Gunn illuminates why he's such a unique, bold voice in hip-hop. It's just that he maybe should have focused on showcasing himself a lot more than he actually did. But hey, this is my perspective. If you're a Westside Gunn fan, this is okay to good, not great material from him, but still enjoyable. And if you're in the market for a loose boom bap record that hums along with no frills, you'll enjoy this one. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!